Drake Toll, Locked On Big 12. Is Iowa State kind of the forgotten program in the Big 12 when you look at the upcoming 2024 season?
Man, Iowa State has so many guys back, and their transfer portal, people look at the transfer portal a lot and say, oh, who did you lose? I look at the transfer portal and say, hey, who'd you lose? Because positive attrition is a thing in college football. And when you have minimal roster turnover like Iowa State, you see a school, even a West Virginia is kind of in this category, Oklahoma State, where you're like, they didn't lose that many guys. But the guys they did lose probably wouldn't have been contributors as it is. There's a different brand in Ames, Iowa when it comes to college football. They don't need the flash. They don't need 5 stars. Hell, they don't need 4 stars. If they get the right 3-star kid who's been picking corn in the middle of Iowa his whole life, he's going to win games for Matt Campbell. And winning games for the Cyclones is 8-4, 9-3. They're always going to be forgotten because they're not going to win a Big 12 championship. However, they're still going to be that 9-win team that upsets somebody else who felt like they were on the road to winning a league title.
You mentioned him specifically, and he was my next question. Matt Campbell was a trendy name when the FSU job was open a few years ago. Mike Norvell ended up there in Tallahassee. He was rumored to a couple of different places around that time, but he stayed at Iowa State. He's going into his 9th or 10th season there.
Yeah.
Pretty good little run that he's had. Thoughts just on Matt Campbell in general?
Lifetime contract at Iowa State. I mean, he's doing something that no one has done there. They've never won 10 games in a season as a program. They've been overlooked in the history of college football. Again, I kind of want to go back to what's been such a hot topic recently. It's expansion. If 8 years ago we were having this same talk about expansion, Iowa State's gone. They're off the board. There's attrition in conferences to where they don't exist anymore in major college athletics because football was so bad for so long. Matt Campbell changed that. And again, an 8-win season at Iowa State is a 13-win season somewhere else because it's a tough place to look at in the Big 12 too. You got a kid who visits Orlando, Florida and UCF, then goes to Provo, Utah, in the middle of the Wasatch Mountains, and then visits Ames, Iowa. You got to like drinking brews. I do. I would get it for that reason. But compared to the beach or the mountains and then Ames, Iowa, I think it's a great college town, but there are a lot of recruits who probably feel differently. The fact that Campbell can win there means that he's secured himself a lifetime contract. Despite a loss last year to Miami of Ohio, the state that he's from, I still think Matt Campbell is a lifer at Iowa State. He understands that and knows that there's not a lot of pressure. Nobody's breathing down his back there. Why not just stay there, make a lot of money, and just live out his life?
You're only going to be as good as your quarterback is. Talk to us about Rocco Becht there in the Big 12. Where does he kind of fall into things?
Rocco Becht reminds me vaguely of what Gary Bohannon was at Baylor a couple of years ago. And that's a name that I think a lot of folks might not remember. He's a BYU quarterback now. And the reason you don't remember him is kind of a good thing. He didn't turn the ball over much. He had decent legs. His arm was fine. He wasn't flashy, but he got the job done. He was a field general. He's somebody who every day you're like, this is what I'm going to get from this guy. And there's not a huge extreme in either direction. I think Rocco Becht can be very good. We've seen him throw for 300 yards. However, you just need him to do enough in the Iowa State offense to put them in a situation to win. I think it's what you're going to get from a 20-year-old kid. Look, he's still young and can still progress. Was a 3,000-yard passer last season, 23 touchdowns. But the numbers aren't. He's not going to put up 4,500 yards. He's not going to put up 35 touchdowns. And you don't need him to. You need Rocco Becht to fit Iowa State football. And he does really well, enough so that they'll win games under him.
Win total last year was 4.5. This year it's 7.5. Vegas gets suckers like me all day long, and right. I know there's a reason they continue to build palaces out there in the desert, but the over feels like it's going to cash for the Cyclones this year. You want to talk me out of it, or are you buying it?
I'm so glad you brought this up because I love Iowa State's for the fact of momentum, early season momentum. They get North Dakota, win. They get Iowa. I think the way that things shake out between those two rosters, they're in a good spot to win that game. Even if they don't, they're going to beat Arkansas State. They're going to beat Houston. They're going to beat Baylor. They've got a very easy stretch to start off the year. If they start 4-1, that's enough momentum. And at Iowa State, a thing like momentum is very important for them to have a great back half of the schedule that gets much tougher. Then you go Iowa State, West Virginia on the road in Morgantown. UCF, that's going to be a tough win. Texas Tech. I think Kansas is a Big 12 competitor this year. Cincinnati, certainly a win, but you end the season with Utah and Kansas State. That's in the Big 12. That's as much of a gauntlet as it gets. I still believe in the Cyclones down the stretch because of how well they'll start off the season, but they're going to have to win some coin flip games.
What is your boldest prediction for Iowa State this year?
Iowa State wins 8 games. And that's the boldest and the mildest prediction that you could possibly ever give for the Iowa State Cyclones.
It's still Iowa State. It's still
at this point in Matt Campbell's career, you just go, Iowa State will win 8 games. That's just what we know. But just stick with what you know. It's as bold as it gets and as mundane as it gets. Give the Cyclones 8.
Where can people follow you for not just Iowa State info, but coverage on any and all Big 12 teams?
At Locked On Big 12 on YouTube or wherever you find your podcasts, and at Drake C. Toll on Twitter.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you for stopping by.
100%.